Welcome to the show, everyone. I am your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I am very excited for our guest today. Her name is Ronda Conger, and Ronda is a VP with CBH Homes. She's also an award-winning author and just a great inspiration for us all. She's also a national speaker. So welcome to the show, Ronda. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I am so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I can't wait.
Well, it's funny because before we even connected, I've heard about you from several people, and obviously the most recent was Chris Hartley. And he was just raving and raving and raving about you. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to her. Obviously she seems to be such an inspiration and doing a lot in the new construction industry. I was like, wow, okay, I gotta connect with this lady. So
I'm so glad that you did. And Chris is an inspiration to me. And I love what you do. I love learning from other people and hearing. So I listened to Chris Hartley the other day, your interview, and loved that, took a bunch of notes. So this is great.
Good, I'm glad. So usually we kick off the show by doing a little introduction. If you don't mind telling our listeners how you got into new construction sales and, what your progression has been in your career with new homes.
I would tell you, I started, it's probably 24, 25 years ago. I would have told you that this isn't what I was going to do, to be honest with you. But I was newly engaged, getting ready to get married. And my mother said, why don't you get your real estate license so that you can buy you and your husband a house? I went to, right? I went to real estate school, met this amazing instructor who said, you have to meet this amazing woman who works in new home construction at KB Homes. I think you'll love her. I think you should do new homes. I was like, no, I'm not here for a career or a job right? No. And so then I go on to actually meet this woman because he was so relentless that I had to meet her. And he was right. So I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Liesl Cooper. She's with Century Communities now. She's been in the industry for probably 30 years, absolute powerhouse. And I met her. We had the best time. And she was like, I'll see you tomorrow at the sales meeting. And I was like, why? Why will you see me tomorrow at your sales meeting? She was like, oh, you're going to work here. I was like, no. I didn't come for a job. No. And lo and behold, I went to the sales meeting and started as a hostess, by the way, and the rest is history. I've been in new home construction since. I've fallen absolutely in love with it. It's my passion. I adore it. I love, here at CBH, we say that we build dreams because we firmly believe that we're building dreams, right? That this is one of the largest purchases and the things that happen in these homes with kids and families and all that good stuff. So it's been just amazing from that side. So it started from just a simple, funny kind of conversation that I would have never imagined. And it's just blossomed into so much more.
It's funny how those things sometimes happen. And, I'm a big believer that there are no coincidences in life. I think that everything does happen for a reason. I truly believe that. So I think that probably, right? So did you end up buying a home for you and your husband, or what happened?
I bought a KB home.
Oh, okay.
I went to work, and then of course I fell in love with the model as I was working, and I bought a KB home.
Very nice. Okay. So it sounds like you've been in the industry for quite some time. And can you tell us a little bit about the different roles that you had throughout your time? So obviously you started off as a hostess, and then now you're a VP. So how did you get from point A to point B?
So I would tell you that I love that quote. It goes something like, be so good they can't ignore you. And so I've always wanted to be the best. I always wanted to work the hardest, get there early, stay long, learn the most, say yes to every opportunity. I was always the yes girl. And so that's always kind of been how I've ran my life, my philosophies. I'm still the same way. And I think because of that, it helped me kind of further my career and open so many doors. So I went from hostess to sales management to marketing manager, to director of sales and marketing. I then went over, I read far too many Curious George books as a kid. So I am curious about everything. So then I jumped over and I worked in warranty. And then I jumped over and I worked in the design studio. I helped with construction, land development, product. And it was like through the years and through the different companies that I've been with, that's kind of been my MO, is that I wanted to learn the most. I wanted to be the most helpful, serve and give as much as I can. And doing that really just led me to this position as the vice president, which I've been for 15 years.
So it sounds like you've done it all. And looking back, what would you say was your favorite role that you've done?
My favorite role.
Was it something you were like, oh my gosh, this was just what I was born for? Or, that's something, because obviously, between land, sales, and marketing, even sales and marketing, right? They're although they go together, they're very different things. Yeah. So was there one that you felt like you were more natural at, maybe?
I love people. I love helping people. I love pushing people. I love helping people be their absolute best. So I would definitely probably say the role that I'm in now, just in the sense that I get to serve people all day. I love to overcome challenges. I love to push us just when you think you can't do more. I know we can do more. People, like, I could talk and help and serve people all day long. Problems don't bother me. Issues don't bother me. I love helping people be the best. So I would definitely say the leadership role. It's really, to me, that's the title or what I do, but really it's serving people. Mm-hmm. I love it. Best thing I do all day.
So you brought something up. You said that you were always a yes girl, right? You said yes, you were enthused. And in your book, which thank you so much for sending it to me, love the book. So you go first, your latest book. You talk about yes being your favorite word in the English language. Yep. Now, we have more in common than...
Oh my God!
We're like twinning, right?
Oh my gosh! That just made my day. That's amazing. Hold on. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
Start with yes. Love that. So right? I've always had I moved it now to my home office, but as a sales rep, I used to always have it at my desk, and I always looked at it as like, okay, how many yeses? Yes is such a great word because it opens doors, and I mean, yes is yes, right?
It changes everything.
Mm-hmm. So. Like you, I also love to read a lot of books and listening to podcasts and everything. And so I've heard the two different stories with the yes and the no's. Okay. Right? There's a group of people that strongly believe in saying yes. Mm-hmm. And I think like Shonda Rhimes, I think, was the one that wrote a book like a year of yes. And I've heard, so basically it's like she tried to say yes to as many things as possible. And then there's also a group of people that believe that in order to be successful, you actually need to say no. And their thinking is because every yes that you say, you're saying no to something else that you could be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yep. So I am definitely the lover of yes, mm-hmm. but with that, right, you can definitely get into a sticky situation if you're saying too many yeses, especially when you get to the point like you, right, someone that is responsible for so many people. You're kind of a mover and a shaker, and I'm sure you have a lot on your plate. So how do you prioritize your yeses now versus your no's? So what do you say yes to?
So I think it's, and I agree with, I can see their point. And as far as, you do have to be careful with your yeses. And I think no is about being smart and respectful of what's right for you, what's because you don't want to say yes to something that's going to set you up for failure or set them up for failure or not be a good fit. So it might be a different way. I always try to find a different way to say yes while I'm saying no, right? Like, for example, I can't speak all the time. I would love to, and I'm very blessed. I have a lot of requests, but I have a very busy job. So it's me balancing it. So normally my no is maybe a soft no, in the sense of I'm not able to make that date, but I'm going to send all of you my book. Right. So I want to always find a way to, yes, and sometimes it is a no and it has to be a hard no, but I just think, I guess I would hope that the majority of the time would be a yes, because if not, they're missing so many opportunities. And so, and for example, I get asked for a cup of coffee or to pick my brain or to meet with me. And sometimes I'll definitely say yes, but you might not see me for 4 months. It's still a yes, but it's not a yes next week. Right? I think I'm always just weighing to say, how can I do it? What does yes look like? And maybe it's not going to be what you absolutely thought, but I'll hopefully get close. Mm-hmm. I had another one, and I said, well, I can't do it this year, but I can do it next year. Right? I think it's all in how you look at it. I look at life as a series of opportunities. And you just said earlier, like signs and things that come in your life. So I try to just look at everything really, really hard. And the best that I can, I do try to say yes. Mm-hmm. People like, how do you do it? You're too busy. I think Darren Hardy says it. You don't have a time management problem. You have a self-management problem. So I really try to focus on managing my time, being very, very effective with it, and getting as much in as I can. It's really important to me. So I feel like I can say yes just based on how I run my days and my life.
Mm-hmm. So maybe especially in the beginning when you're trying to grow your career and you're trying to climb that corporate ladder, right? Saying yes is especially important, and maybe you can take on a little bit more in the beginning than you would once you're kind of in an established role where you can really pick and choose.
Well, and absolutely. I think the other thing, as I'm very blessed. I have an amazing team that have been with me for a very long time, like really long time. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of my yeses become their yeses. And it's, one of my favorite sayings in the book is let go to go up. Mm-hmm. And so I'm able to let go of certain functions and to do things and share with my team and give to my team, give them a chance to try something, give them a chance to do something that they, wouldn't be able to do otherwise, while I'm able to do even more. So I think the yes doesn't mean that it absolutely has to be you. I think that's where leadership to me comes in, is that you're sharing with your team and you're giving them just as many opportunities as you have.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So with your latest book, you go first, and you guys got to pick up a copy. And can you tell everyone where they can get a copy?
So you can get it on Amazon, or you can get it on my website, which is rondaconger.com. No H, don't put an H in there. RONDACONGER. So yeah, either one.
Perfect. And I'll link to it in the show notes. So hopefully we can get you some extra sales of the book and spread the word. And I love what you do with this book, is that basically you're saying, okay, in order to be a great leader, you have to lead by example, right? And you have to go first, essentially, in order for your people to emulate those qualities. And you talk about horrible bosses, and it's like, I can't help but think about the movie The Office, right? Yeah, I'm going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday. So, one of the exercises you had was to write down 3 qualities of excellent bosses that you had in the past and 3 qualities of the horrible bosses. So a question I had for you is, especially in the sales, right? When you're managing a team of sales professionals, you clearly have some superstars, mm-hmm. and maybe you have other people who are, maybe need some improvement. Mm-hmm. And how do you manage people without favoritism? Or how do you feel about favoritism in that sense that, there are companies that give the best communities to that one sales superstar, and they get kind of a special treatment sometimes, and then people in the company other salespeople may start to resent that, right? So do you feel that it's justified to spotlight that superstar? Because obviously, especially salespeople, we live for praise, right? It's not even money sometimes. Obviously, we all love money, but it's the praise, right? We love the recognition.
Right.
So how do you feel about favoring the rock star of the team? And
You know, I have to tell you, we definitely, here's what I think. I would hope that you would want all rock stars on your team to some degree. And rock star could be in different manners. I mean, everyone has different skill sets. Everyone has different strengths. We definitely focus on strengths, on what are your strengths, and let's celebrate those and really like help you dive in and make sure you're working in your strengths. Then we know that you'll be really, really great, right? So I do think as a sales leader, part of your job is to help coach that person that maybe isn't at rock star status yet, is to get them there. You hired them for a reason, right? So what is it? And then, I had this I do a conference, a You Go First kind of conference seminar a couple times a year. And last year I had a gentleman attend, and I told the story about if you look at the people who aren't performing at their highest, and you sat down for just a second and you wrote down the 30 things that you loved about them, right? That you like why you hired them, the strengths, what they bring to the table, your view of them will change. If you're just focusing on all their weaknesses and what they're not doing compared to your rock star, they'll never measure up, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's so funny. So a year goes by, we do that exercise, a year goes by, the gentleman comes back to my conference and he interrupts me mid-conference and says, "Can I tell you a story?" I said, "Sure." And he says, "Do you realize I did this exercise a year ago? And I was actually getting ready to fire this salesperson the next day. I didn't fire him because of the Focus 30 exercise. And actually, I've since then, 1 year's time, promoted him, and he is now my boss. That's how good he is."
Wow.
Right? And he's done other things, and it's actually all. But I just think we have to be careful when we talk about salespeople that what are you focusing on? What are their strengths? And what are you celebrating? I'm very leery of celebrating a salesperson that isn't a full package. Because you can put numbers on the board, you have to be able to do everything else. How's your attitude? How's your follow-up? How's your work ethic? How do you treat the rest of the team? So yes, I love rock stars, but I love them if they're the full package. And we really coach to that, our expectations, what we're training. So we really feel like everyone is on a journey to get there.
Mm-hmm. So when is the next You Go First conference?
It's so funny. We just chose it, and I think it's September 17th, I believe. September
17th. You guys put it on your calendar. And the Focus 30 exercise, is that something that you would be able to share with us? Because you know what, if we're in danger of getting fired, we can give it to our boss and say, "Hey, do this exercise right now."
And you know what I love? I tell everyone, this is funny, if someone comes to me, because this is about your whole life. This isn't about business. I run my whole life the same way. If I have someone come into my office and say, "I'm really struggling with my spouse. I'm really struggling with my marriage. Will you help?" And that happens, to be honest. And normally what I say, "Could you just do me a favor? Could you both go home and do a Focus 30? Could you both write down the 30 things why you love each other?" Because you're focused on why you don't right now or what you're struggling with. And if you actually brought it back to the right things that you're focusing on, at least that's the getting us in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Right? Because attitude changes. How you view something changes. So to me, it's for your whole life. And I will definitely share the link with you for the Focus 30. I would love to.
Okay. And then what I love in your book is that you talk a lot about consistency. And, it's so true that especially a lot of salespeople, there's a lot of ups and downs, and it's typically kind of accepted as, it's just the nature of sales. So you talk about being consistent, and it really got me thinking, like, it's so true, because if you're just a one-hit wonder, and we have those people that, and then they get all the praise, but then they can't repeat that. Yeah. And it makes you question, was it just luck, or was it something that they actually did in order to be consistent? And with all the ups and downs, it's sometimes challenging to keep a good attitude. right? So you make such an emphasis in this book on good, positive attitude, especially as a leader. And I think it's so important to remind our leaders to keep positive attitude, because sometimes, you know, you don't see them for a whole month, and then on the last day of the month, they're in your model when you're not doing well that month, right? And they're sitting there next to you saying like, okay, what are you going to do today to get those sales? And it's like, okay, I feel horrible as is, right? And you think you're being here and kind of putting that extra pressure on me instead of encouraging. How's that going to change things? So where do you get your positive attitude? Because reading this book, I could feel the attitude, and I think it's really contagious. So where do you get, you know, I think you talk about it, filling your tank.
Yeah, absolutely.
So absolutely. Part of that is your attitude. So how do you fill your tank attitude?
Well, you saw my office. So
yes, love that.
Everything around me is definitely positive. I think that's, your environment has to kind of set the stage. I'm a ferocious reader, and so everything that I'm reading is obviously pushing me, making me better, keeping my mindset straight. I'm very picky with who I surround myself with, what type of people. I think you have to really be guarded of what I don't watch TV. It's not my thing. So it's kind of like
TV at all?
Not sporting events. I love sporting events.
Okay.
Other than that, it just won't happen. It's just not a thing for me. I just think you have to be very careful of what you're listening to, what you're watching, who you're surrounding yourself with, which will then impact your environment and then your attitude towards everything. One of my favorite quotes is, when the mood is positive, everything is possible. And so I always keep that in mind. And then, I think Gary Vaynerchuk says, which I love that guy, is like, the alternative to positive sucks, right? Like, why would you want to be that? I have zero desire to hold myself in that fashion, to act like that and behave like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that all those things contribute to it. I think it's funny you telling the story about your sales leader showing up the last day of the month. They don't have it. The last day of the month is the last time to show up. Like, it's too like, what are we doing? You're going to pull all these sales out of your hat on the last day? Not Houdini, right? So I just feel like when you talk about consistency, that it kind of goes back to the time management, self-management, that I look at salespeople and say, do you have your day planned out ahead of time? So you know how many calls, how many appointments, how many people you have to get in front of. So you're looking at by the day, by the week, and the month will take care of itself, and then the year will take care of itself. And I think sometimes people just kind of hope the day goes well, hope that someone walks in, hope, right? No, you need to physically have your plan, know how many people you need to make contact. I always say, you've heard it before, sales is a numbers game. How many people do you need to get in front of, and how are you doing that, and how are you planning that on a daily, hourly basis, not at the last day of the month.
Mm-hmm. And
right?
I think
that's where consistency comes from.
Yeah, and you bring up a couple of great points here. So one is, a lot of salespeople, I think, are very like, well, sales is art, right? It's I don't need the follow-up system, or it's just when you feel it, it comes. But I am a big believer in a process, and taking a look at, okay, realistically, from the past experiences, how many people you need to see in order to achieve those sales numbers, right? So I'm a big believer in putting it in a calendar down to the specifics, breaking it down week by week, because it's much easier to see if you're hitting that number, and if not, what adjustments can you make in order to actually get there. So I definitely believe in that. And they say, if you don't, how does that go? Something about, if you don't like plan your day, the day will run you, or something like that, right? That you get overwhelmed with to-do things, right? Customers coming into your model, and there's no shortage of issues, construction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And next thing you know, you're leaving and you haven't done the important activities that will actually drive the sales.
Well, it's funny. Our director of sales and marketing, Holly Hayner, she's been with me for 19 years. She's phenomenal. She started as a salesperson. And the one thing that I simply adored with her and she's a biology major. She didn't come from a sales background. She didn't come, all of that. What I loved about her is every day she had on her list, she had to make 20 sales calls. It was just a non-negotiable number for her, that 20 sales calls, no matter what would happen. And so I would see her stay in the sales office till 7, 8, sometimes 9 o'clock at night, because she made this rule and said that if I can't manage myself during the day and get my calls done, I can't go home until they're done. And so she almost was like punishing her own self to say, if you would have actually planned and got them done during the day, you wouldn't have had to stay late. And I think if you make it a non-negotiable, success is more apt to find you, right? Because you are doing the hard things no matter what. Because it's easy to leave and say, well, I didn't have time. Well, you're right, you didn't. But if it's a priority, you'll make it happen, right? Yeah. Have you heard the story about Jerry Seinfeld and how he got to his success as a writer?
Isn't it he wrote every day like a really short piece or something, and then he had so much material that it made him successful? So yeah, he would write every single day.
And he created an app. I think it's called Momentum. Don't quote me on that, but if you Google Jerry Seinfeld. And so basically he would track that every day he wrote, and he would track a thread to make sure that he was staying successful and that he was doing it every day and holding himself accountable. But he firmly believes that it was doing something every day towards his craft is what put him where he is today. I think salespeople are no different. What are you doing every day, right? Like how many phone calls, how many appointments, how many belly to bellies, right? How many people are you getting in front of? If you were to track that every day and make sure that you hit that magical number, whatever that number is for you, you'd be a success. It wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, and it's funny enough. Actually, I don't watch a lot of TV myself. There's just a couple of shows that I'm usually like once a week I'll watch a show. And so one of the things that my husband and I watched this past week was Riding in Cars with Comedians. Have you seen that? And
yeah,
it's Jerry.
I haven't seen it, but I want to see that.
So it's for those of you guys who are not familiar, I want to say it's a Netflix show, and Jerry Seinfeld is the host, and he basically picks up different comedian in the show in a different type of a cars. Jerry Seinfeld is a big lover of cars, and they drive around and kind of chit chat. And what I thought was very interesting is that almost every single comedian that he spoke with would always say, like, don't you ever think like, somebody else could just come in and do this job so much better than you? Or, you always feel so insecure in this role. And Jerry would be like, no. And it was interesting. There's so many comics out there, like, and great superstars too, that feel so insecure. And Jerry, on the other hand, was so like, no, like, I don't feel that way at all. I think I'm the best. And I think that confidence probably comes with that repetition, that he's not just relying on luck, chance of a draw, that he's a one-hit wonder, that he's actually putting in the work and he's proving himself, and his success comes from that. So I just thought it kind of brought it full circle for me now talking to you about the consistency in the Momentum app.
Well, I think the other side of that, and I think all of that is true, I think the other side is you have to have an abundance mindset, that there is more than enough in this world for all of us to be successful. And we all, our version of success, what success looks like, what your strengths are, we're all different, right? Somebody who likes, Jerry, or someone who may not like Jerry's style, may like someone else. Is that, I think that's the beauty of this, is I think we have to, the scarcity and the fear and being beat and not being enough, I think all of those are silly. That there is more than enough for everyone, and we need everyone to shine their light, I say, right? Everyone has a strength. You have strengths that I don't have, right? And that we need them. And it shouldn't be a matter of, well, there's only so many spots available for good comedians, or only so many spots available for rock star salespeople. No. There is more than enough, right? I mean, I look at my team and I want all of them to thrive. I want all of them to be abundant. I want all of them to hit their goals, right? I don't want just one superstar. That doesn't serve me. Or anybody.
Especially when that superstar leaves.
Yeah.
Definitely. And actually, if you guys want to hear a great episode all about abundance, Kimberly Mackey and I did one. I believe it's episode number 3. If you want to refer back to that one, that was a good one for abundance mentality. And you speaking about the strength, and that everyone has their own strengths, and you're a big proponent of a Gallup. how is it? Is
So
that the right?
it's Tom Rath, and it's Strength Finders 2.0 is, and I think it is Gallup, but the book is called Strength Finders 2.0, and it's Tom Rath who wrote it.
Okay. So I took the assessment. I did. I was like, you know what, I want to see. So we're actually, we're coming up. I know yours was what? Competition, maximizer, achiever, activator, and strategic. Yes. And mine came up as competition, maximizer, relator, positivity, and futuristic.
Oh, those are good. Oh yeah, those are good. I can totally see them. It makes sense. I have to tell you, Strength Finders is one of my favorites because, for example, you and I have formally never met, right? So, this is new, and I want to get to know you and know more about you. But by you telling me your 5 strengths, I quickly know what drives you as a person, right? And then we also have a connection because we have some things in common. I think that it is such an amazing tool to help people. Like, we use it for interviewing. Like, you can't interview with us unless you've done your Strength Finders, because I need to know you quickly, because a half an hour spending together on an interview, I'm not going to learn that much about you as a person truly, right? And so I feel like Strength Finder is the quickest way for you to know someone. It's also really great when you're dealing with team members to understand what drives them, because what drives you may not drive them.
Absolutely.
So we keep ours on our doors, all over our office. We are very aware of our strengths.
Very cool. So you guys, I'll link to that in the show notes as well if you want to check out what your strengths are. And Rhonda, do you think that over time, I don't know if you've taken the strength trainer like before, like say maybe 10 years ago versus now, do you find that it stays the same, or does it actually change over time? Because I know I've taken a Myers-Briggs, which is kind of a similar assessment. And I know that mine has definitely changed from about 10 years ago. I feel like 10 years ago, I was more of an extrovert. I would identify myself as an extrovert. And actually, believe it or not, lately I've been identifying myself more as an introvert. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how your personality can change, right? And as you're progressing through life and you're learning new things and you're getting to know yourself better, that could also change. And it's definitely helpful to look at it on a piece of paper and say, oh, okay, I get it. And maybe you can concentrate on those new strengths instead of trying to, develop some of the weaknesses.
No, and I absolutely think that I had my sons do it when they were younger, and then I did want to wait another 5 or 6 years and for them to do it again, because I do think you are growing and changing. I would probably say with mine, I definitely am staying in this space, right? Like those 5 words, you could truly just put that as my job description here. Done, right? Competition, maximize, right? Activator, make things happen. Achiever and strategic, make sure everyone's on the right seat on the bus doing the right things. So I would definitely say, because I'm in my strengths, I'm just amplifying those now. Mm-hmm. Same thing what you're saying, right? And that's where I do think it's important that you stay in your strengths, because that's where you find your passion. That's where you find your confidence. That's where you find the love of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And it makes everything so much easier, right? Versus if you're in your weakness and you're in a hard situation or everything just gets heavier. Everything just gets harder.
Yeah. And it seems like, a lot of us coming up, we had some kind of a childhood trauma or something happened to us that maybe we don't quite feel like we're worthy or we're whole. And I want to read a couple of sentences from your book. And you said that I'm the poster child for the kid that should have ended up in a roadside ditch. My life from the ages of 3 to 17 was a first-class shit show. First of all, I love that you swear too, because
I'm your girl.
I'm a big swearer too. So, sounds like you've had a rough childhood. So how did you find a way, instead of kind of giving into the temptations, right? Especially you see people maybe who don't have parents or strong authority near them, that it's very easy to give into temptation, right? Maybe you're hanging out with the wrong kind of a crowd, and then next thing you know, you're doing drugs, and next thing you know, you're kind of going down a very dangerous path. Versus, I know some of my friends had really, really dire circumstances, and I look at them and I think, oh my goodness, if I was in your situation, I probably would have ended up on, I don't know, definitely not what you're doing now. So why do you think that is, that some people end up going down that wrong path versus some people find a way to really get out of it and use that as almost like a propulsion to say, I never want to be in that situation, and I'm going to use it as like a driving force, instead of saying, well, clearly the world is against me, and what's there to do?
And I have to tell you, I think that is the $1 million question, because I'm perplexed by it most days. Because, I look at it, and you're right. I worked really hard to pull myself out of that situation. I also felt like, I talk about Curious George books. You hear me say I'm a ferocious reader. So from 3 to 17, I did, reading was my escape. Right? Reading was, I could get away from my life. I could get away from the situation, and I could see into other worlds, that there were other things possible. So truly, I do firmly believe that reading showed me a different way, and gave me hope and gave me light where there really wasn't. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I feel like I took all of that and realized that there was this whole other way to live and be and do, and then just kind of ran with it from that side, right? And really ran away from everything else. I'm just really surprised when I see people run towards the mayhem, run towards the chaos, or stay in it. I think also it kind of comes down to your mentality. Are you a victim, or are you a warrior? I always say that you have to, are you a pilot, or are you a passenger? Mm-hmm. And I feel like you have to be very, very cognizant of what you're thinking. In all of those scenarios, it's so hard. I talk about it with so many people. This is really a hot topic, and I love talking about it. It's always like, if you could just change, your mindset on how you view yourself, how you view your circumstances, and you really became that pilot, you really became that warrior that said, because I have to tell you, I could care less that I had a hard life. I could care less. I don't really want to talk about it. You'll never hear me, right? I tell you a little bit just so people can understand what drives me and what pushes me, but I don't want anyone's pity. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I feel like so many people want to hold on to it and wear it as a badge of like, poor me. And I say, just get rid of it. It's holding you back. It's stopping you from being amazing. So I think it's really hard. I wish that I could have some magic answer that says, but I firmly believe it's mindset. It's what you're putting in. Obviously, I chose reading. What are you watching? What are you doing? Who are you hanging with? I mean, I made an absolute conscious decision to not hang around people who did not inspire me, push me, fill me up, or that I didn't want to be like.
Mm-hmm. And I think it all goes back to, again, proximity is power. So in your case, sounds like reading was, even though it may not have been that person in your life as a child, right? But the authors, the stories that you surrounded yourself, that's, again, goes back to the average of the 7 people you hang out with, or something like that. Yeah. So it definitely makes sense. So if you're feeling that you're in a situation where you're maybe trapped, or you don't have access to those role models, which you always do. And I'm sure, Ronda, you can talk about it, because a woman in your position of power, I'm sure you probably get a lot of young women who come up to you and say, would you mentor me, right? Would you, and I'm sure it's flattering for you, right? And it would be pretty hard to turn somebody down, right? When they're coming to you and saying, hey, would you mentor me? So don't be afraid to go out there and reach out to the people that you're in awe of, the people that inspire you, and ask them, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They'll say no, I don't have the time, maybe next year. So, and then again, remember that it doesn't have to be a physical person right there. Like I consider that I have a lot of mentors, but most of my mentors I've never met in real life, right?
Yeah.
It's all the podcasts that we listen to, it's the books that you read, it's the imaginary friends, and you really feel like you're in a friendship with them. And it sounds like you listen to quite a few podcasts yourself, right? So don't you think like you're almost like you're in a relationship with those people, even though they've never met you, right?
Well,
you never met them.
That's probably been the one thing that's been really fun with my books. You know, I started with Better Human. My first book is more of a personal insight to me on how I run my life. And so Better Human, I realized after I wrote it that people felt like we were best friends. Like I've had people come up to me and hug me and I don't know who they are. And they're like, we're best friends. I feel like you were talking to me. I feel like I know you. And I'm like, that's amazing. But it's true. It's so true. And I've never met these people before. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right. I think there's so many ways and there's so many resources out there to change your life and change your perspective, but you have to be open to them.
Mm-hmm. And so obviously this is your fifth, or how many books do you have?
That's my third.
Third. Okay. I was going to say, I know there are multiples, so, well, maybe you have 5, right, more books to come. So
I do.
3 books under your belt. How did you get started writing books? Like how you're like, I'm going to write a book one day. You know what I mean? Like, how does that happen?
It didn't quite go that way, but so it started. Well, one, I love books, so that shouldn't be too much of a surprise. At the same time, because of my leadership role in the company, and so for the past at least 10 years or more, I've been asked to speak in public to different groups, to different companies, which is great. And I love it. The funny part is I really don't talk about new home construction too much. I talk about life and leadership and leading yourself. And then I'll mix in some new home construction. But like I said, this is for your whole life. And so, and every time I would do one, someone else would ask. I'd do one, someone else would ask. So I keep a pretty chock full speaking schedule, which I love. And then I would say probably 8 years ago, 7 or 8, maybe even 9 years ago, I kept having these people come up to me after I would speak. Where do I buy your book? Where do I buy your book? Where do I buy your book? And finally I was like, oh my gosh,
I got to write a book.
And then I'll remember one of the last ones before I actually wrote, I had this gentleman come up to me afterwards and he hands me his card. And I said, oh, thanks. Nice to meet you. I'll take your card. And he goes, no, I want to buy your book. That's why I'm giving you my card. I want to buy your book. And I said, I don't have a book, but thank you. And he goes, no, keep the card, because when you're finished writing, you're going to send it to me, because you will write a book. And I just literally took that as the sign that I'd heard it enough times. It was time. And I decided to write the book. And a year later, my book was done.
That's amazing. I definitely have it in my head that one day I will write a book. So I kind of have a topic too. So we'll see. Hopefully it's going to come to fruition in the near future. So I definitely can see that.
I have no doubt that it will. And if you need any help, call me. I feel like I have the easiest way to write a book. I think we overcomplicate it. We make it like it's this some big thing. And I hate to say at the end of the day, it's not. I know you have a book in you just based on everything that you talk about in your podcast and your view and your world. So if I can help you, reach out to me. I would love to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you know what I love about your book is that it's such an easy read. Like you read it, and I think you speak like you read. So it's dead on. So I love that style. So speaking about reading, I know that's another thing we have in common. I love to read as well. So I always ask people, what are you reading? What inspires you? Now, I know you're an avid reader. So if you had to look back at all the things you read in the past, and there was only one book that you could read for the rest of your life, what book would that be? Because, we all have those books that we go back to, right? And we reread them.
Oh, boy.
Is there a book that really made an impact on you?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. That is so unfair.
I had to throw in a curveball there. You know, it would be too easy to just ask you for what's the latest you read, or, you know, what's the.
Well, and that's the thing, because you definitely get stuck. I mean, I'm reading so many amazing books right now that I could just rattle off, you know. I'm trying to think one that I go back to or that I read over and over, or I really do love, Kevin Hall is actually a good friend of mine, and he wrote a book called Aspire. And I have to tell you, I've read that one several times. Mm-hmm. Let me think what else. I guess I can only say one. I could say so many. It's so hard. It's so hard. I'll say that one because I think it's just a great life book. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we'll say that one.
Okay. I'll have to check it out. I have not read that one, so I'll definitely be downloading.
I'm biting my tongue right now, since I'm not, because I want to spit out like 10 books to you.
Is it available on Audible?
Yes, Audible, Amazon, everything.
Okay, because I'm definitely Audible. I like to listen, so.
So did you listen to You Go First on Audible, or did you just read?
No, you know what? Since I got a copy, I did actually read it, and I'll tell you what. That it's easy enough read that I manage. But normally I really like to listen, you know, because then you can be doing some other stuff, you know, you can be unloading the dishwasher and you're listening. So as a busy mom, I'm sure you can relate to that. It's just something that, you know, driving, listening. So it's
super smart.
I love, so for sure. But so you have the audio. Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm going to download that too, and did you do your own book, or?
We had so much fun. We had so much fun. Yeah. Did my own book. They also put my outtakes at the end. So we had fun. We had the recording crew here it was probably my absolute favorite. So yeah, it was fun.
Nice. I'm going to download it because I feel like, you know, coming from the author versus you reading it, because you always put your own filter on it.
So true. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's another thing when I love, especially when the author curates it, it's definitely so different. All right. So one other question for you. So obviously you're a busy woman. You're juggling a lot of things. Is there a tool that you use that helps you? So maybe something that we could implement as sales reps in our day-to-day life. Could be as easy as Post-it notes, or is there an app, or I don't know, scheduling program or something that really makes your life easier?
So let me grab something. Stay right there.
Okay.
I'll grab. So I would tell you. Let me think here. Well, one, my calendar is my life. Mm-hmm. So I schedule everything. I time block. I put everything on my calendar. I always say my success isn't a mystery because I planned it so. I put it on my calendar, and I constantly review my calendar. So I would never want you to take my calendar away from me, only because it's literally where I have everything planned out. And I look at it like, so Sunday night, I get ready for the week. I look at my whole week in front of me. I plan it out, what's important, what goals I'm going to hit, what I need to get done, what I need to do. And then I insert it throughout. And then I check it every day, a couple times a day, to make sure that I'm on target, on track. Do I need to move something, adjust something, that type of thing. So I always tell someone, like, if I'm in meeting with someone, they're saying I'm not having success, I'm not hitting my goals, I always say, will you pull out your phone for me? Can I look at your calendar? And when I pull it up and it's empty and there's nothing on it, or maybe their yoga's on there, or they're going to dinner with a friend, I'm like, well, don't be surprised, right? You haven't planned your success. You haven't thought about your success ahead of time. So I would definitely say calendar, hands down, is my jam, is my thing. I think the other thing that I'm obsessed with, and if you see me, you'll probably know, I call it my Bible. It's a Russell Hazel mini binder. I'm a paper girl. So I keep this with me at all times, and it's just organized by different like meetings and threads and people and goals. And I keep it with me so that I'm always on track, on task, and I have the important things with me that I'm able to work on, whether a plane, whether I'm at a doctor's office, whether I'm at coffee with someone. I just keep it front and center. So Russell Hazel mini binder is probably one of my favorite things on the planet.
All right. So, and then for the calendar itself, do you keep yours on your phone, or do you do a paper calendar? So in other words, do you have like a day planner, like a physical day planner, or on the phone? Okay.
I do print out my calendar a couple times, either a day or during the week, and just kind of cruise over it and make notes and things that have to change. But it's definitely on my phone. And like literally before I go to bed at night, I peruse for the day forward. What do I have to get ready for? When I wake up in the morning, what do I need to be thinking about today? What needs to get done? I think you have to keep your goals, your plans front and center, and they're more apt to happen, right? Yeah. And that's why I said, pull out your phone. And I always say, pull out your phone and I'll know what's important to you. Right? I'll know what project is, what person is, what you're focusing on. I say the same thing with your text messages. I always say, can you give me your phone? And I'll tell you that if it's good news, the people that have access to you. So I normally don't give out my phone to very many people. I want the right people with access to me, with the right attitudes, with the right behaviors. I don't need everyone. You know what I mean? And I always say, so pull out your phone, look at the people that are texting you, look at their texts. Is that good news? If it's not, delete their contact.
Someone poisoned the water hole. Yes. Yeah, I am definitely a paper calendar person. I don't know why. I just, on my phone, I need to see like the bigger picture. I feel like I need to see the next few days, the week, for me to make sense of it. For some reason, I just can't. I can't do it on my phone. And my dog keeps eating my calendar, so it's the third one I've had this year.
No, that's funny.
And every time I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope he didn't eat something really important that I can't remember. You know, so it's. And let me ask you this: the quote you said is that my success isn't a mystery because I planned it so. Is that right?
Yeah, I get asked a lot, like, is this the life you imagined? Or can you believe you have this? Or can you believe you've done that? Or how did this? Or you're so lucky. And you can call it luck. I would call it that I have planned it so, and that I have worked really hard to make sure that I'm getting and hitting the milestones and the goals and the things that I want to happen. And I think that's, you kind of have to have that mindset instead of quit waiting for everything to happen to you or waiting for things to come to you. I'm the mindset that I'm going to go get it. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to work towards it. I'm going to ask for it, right? I love that you said, if you want to have a coffee with someone, you have to ask. And so I think we have to stop this waiting, wishing, and praying and hoping, and go get it. I'm going to go get it. I'm not going to wait for anybody.
Amen. You know, I always like to say, you know what? Prince Charming is not coming to save your girlfriend. He's not coming. So you got to save yourself. And you guys actually did an episode on planning your marketing calendar. So if you need a little bit of extra help on how to plan out your calendar, check it out. I'll link to it in the show notes and you know, give you some direction on there. And lastly, and I'll promise I'll let you go after this. So what are the things that are coming up for you that you want people to know about, and where can people connect with you? Do you hang out on social media, or what's the best place to connect with you?
I'm on social media. I would tell you that it's not my absolute favorite focus. It's what I do, but I do realize that I want to be out there for people. So we try to put out as much of my, quotes and sayings and books and events as possible. I think that is important. So absolutely, you can find me on all of them: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me, and please do. I love it. I love that if you ever have a question or if I can help with anything, I encourage people just to email me. My email is everywhere. It's on my sites. You can go to rondaconger.com. You can go to betterhuman.today and find me as well. They both link to the same. So I'm very open from that standpoint. I would love to hear from anyone. As far as what's coming up next, I do have 2 more books. The one that I'm working on right now
I said 5.
You knew. The next one will be about more in depth about actual company culture. I love companies and teams and culture, and how do you get that, and how, we've won Best Places to Work 8 years running. It's very important to me. So I want to share that about what that, go more in depth than I did for You Go First. I talked about it a little bit in one of the chapters, and I'll do an entire book about culture. The next book will be for my 25th wedding anniversary, and my gift to my husband will be Better Marriage. It's a full-time job. So it's one of my, I'm passionate about it. I have an incredibly hot husband. And so we've been together for, over 25 years, and I want to kind of pay tribute to that and talk about that and how excited I am that we've been married that long, and we've been together. So those will be 2 next. I do have a podcast coming. So,
yay! What's the name of the podcast?
So that's interesting. That's right now. It looks like it'll probably be Better Human. It's a full-time job, but don't quote me on that. My crew and my team is still tweaking this. Podcast the same way. I keep being asked, do you have a podcast? Do you have a podcast? Do you have a podcast? And so once again, over these last couple of years, I was like, okay, evidently, once again, it's a sign. And that it's funny. I have a funny story. When I was doing the Audible version of You Go First, I worked with a new studio that I hadn't worked with before. These guys were amazing. And we're like 5 minutes into the book, if that. Like, I'm in the intro, chapter 1, and all of a sudden the guy, the recorder say, can we stop for a second? And I said, sure. Oh no, am I doing like, oh, sure, we can stop. And they come running in, and they're like, we love this book, and we love you and your voice. Do you have a podcast? We want to follow you. I'm like, did you just interrupt my book to ask me if I have a podcast? Like, and so I was like, that's the final sign, right? Like, I'd been asked and asked and asked and asked. I was like, that's the funniest sign, and it's meant to be. So that's my next big project is I'll launch that probably in the next 30 to 45 days. Hopefully, I'm going to get it done in 30 days.
I can't wait to hear it. I'm definitely going to be downloading that and be adding to my podcast that I listen to, because I need a shot of Rhonda. Is it going to be, what format? Is it going to be like a weekly, daily? What are you thinking for?
So, I think right now I'd like to focus on weekly. Mm-hmm. I'll start weekly, and then we'll just kind of play it by ear. I'm very much, I don't play necessarily by anybody's rules or guidelines. I want to do it my way, which fills my tank, and I'm happy and I'm excited about. So I'm going to try weekly, and then we'll just kind of go from there. See how it feels.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Rhonda. I had such a blast. You're kicking butt because you planned it so. That's going to be the theme. And obviously, you're going to continue to kick butt and show who's the boss. I love everything you do, and that you're not afraid and you're just going for it, and listening to your people and saying, okay, well, I'm going to write a book. Okay, I'm going to do the podcast. I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and everything you've shared with us.
Well, thank you for having me. You inspire me. So I love the podcast that you're doing. I'm going to go back to those past episodes that you speak of, the marketing one and then the abundance one. So I say thank you for sharing you. Thank you for making us better. This is my jam. I love this. And I'm so glad that we got to connect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.